Hey, call me Shape, and today I'm reacting to a video titled Terrified Migrants Flee NYC as 25 Shelters Close. Let's get right into it.
A major announcement about the future of more than 24 migrant shelters in the city. Today, Mayor Adams announcing 25 of them are slated to close in the next 2 months.
The reason? The city says the number of people staying in the shelters has been...
So, as of October 31st, New York had 212 asylum shelters scattered throughout the city, but it looks like that's about to change, as the city just did a major 180 and announced plans to shut 25 of them. However, this sudden announcement has shelter residents terrified, worried about whether or not New York will remain a sanctuary city, because New York's mayor has indicated he wants that to change as well.
News Nation is now confirming some migrants are starting to leave on their own, attempting to self-deport ahead of the second Trump presidency.
A sense of nervousness and uncertainty among the migrant families staying at Floyd Bennett Field. The city announcing Tuesday they are closing 25 migrant shelters in the coming 2 months.
Emily McKenzie, who works in Manhattan, says she's felt a tangible difference over the last 2 years as more and more migrant shelters sprang up. She blames federal and local officials for allowing things to get out of control.
At the peak 17 months ago, the city was welcoming 4,000 migrants per week, but things have dramatically changed. Last week, less than 400 showed up and about 1,000 left.
Migrants who are going through their asylum proceedings are actually cutting things short on their own, and they're finding ports of entry and they're trying to leave ahead of the possibility of Trump removing them.
We don't know what he will decide to do. We are all waiting. Many of us are afraid.
So the asylum crisis in New York is changing in ways nobody could have predicted. But what you're not being told is that although a majority of New York State residents say they support President Trump's immigration plans, New York City's progressive city council does not. And this city is about to become a battleground where a civil war of sorts over immigration policy plays out, as the mayor tries to carry out policies the majority now say they're in favor of without the approval of local lawmakers who are proud of our sanctuary city status and will stop at nothing to make sure it survives long into the future, even if it doesn't actually help people. Because law-abiding immigrants, which include asylum seekers with a legal right to remain in America while their court case plays out, do not benefit from a sanctuary city. They can reside anywhere they want without fear of deportation. But that's not the case for gang members, criminals, terror watch list suspects, and anyone else the federal government has ordered to leave the country but has refused to do so. And with rising crime sweeping over our city, where sanctuary policies allow unknown numbers of Trendy Aragua gang members to reside in our shelters, more and more people are realizing what a bad deal sanctuary city status is for everyone who's not a criminal. And that brings us to the real reason why our shelters are now shutting down. They're failing in their mission to help people, as many of them are dangerous, and the number of asylum seekers traveling to New York who even need a shelter has dropped drastically. And we're now at a point where more people leave our shelters and our city than enter it. A surprising turn of events considering the president, who's promised to overhaul U.S. immigration policy, hasn't even taken office yet, and our border policies haven't changed a whole lot in the last few months. And as you're about to see, that's causing some people worried about future deportations to pack their bags and leave New York voluntarily. So right over here, this is the Row Hotel. It's one of the city's shelters reserved for families. It's got over 1,000 rooms, and it's not one of the facilities that is on the list to be shut down. However, activists are saying that since New York City maintains 2 separate shelter systems, one for asylum seekers and one for homeless individuals who are not here seeking asylum, that it probably should be shut down because it may put people at risk for deportation, because a place like this is highly visible and federal agents could set up shop around here and carry out plans they say our sanctuary city policies were designed to stop.
We think it's safe.
You know, it's kind of funny. I don't know if I'm from Jersey, so I've been to New York many times. I'm actually born in New York. I've had jobs in New York, and it's sad to see what New York is becoming. It's becoming a worse shithole than it used to be. Like, New York is a dirty city. I don't know if you understand this. Like, you would not want to lick the sidewalks of New York. It's dirty. You can smell urine every time of the day walking through some streets in New York. That's how bad it is with the homeless population just peeing everywhere, trash is thrown, people litter everywhere. You literally gotta check your shoes for gum after you walk the city of New York. It's that bad. But because there's a lot of people fleeing to New York, and flooding New York, it's big business. It's big money there. So what happens is that it's really profitable to run a business in New York, but a lot of people don't take care of the city. And so with a lot of these like asylums closing, hopefully they're going to try to clean up the act, because New York has been getting even filthier since they've arrived.
For clients to be in Department of Homeless Services shelter sites rather than to be in these very publicly known sites that are just for new arrivals, putting them at risk potentially for ICE to find them.
So you could see the entrance to this shelter right here behind me, and activists, they make a good point. If these two systems, the shelter system for asylum seekers and other individuals, remain separate, the federal government, if it tries to carry out a deportation agenda, will have an easier time of it. They would prefer new arrivals to live among the general homeless population, which would make it harder for federal authorities to locate them. But what they don't understand is all that's going to do is protect criminals, some of whom are gang members residing in these very same facilities. They're not making the world a better place.
But the problem for those criminals is if they live in highly visible locations, it's going to be very easy for the federal government to track them down. If they don't leave and go into hiding, which there is speculation many are doing, if they think a deportation program might be a problem for them. Think about that. Why would you stay in a place that has been reported as possibly housing those who might be involved in criminal activity after the new president takes over, while the mayor is trying to roll back sanctuary city policies that you might have been benefiting from?
And the way those policies work now is that police are not allowed inside these facilities. Yes, there's a police car parked out front, but that's as close as it can get. And if the police think there's criminal activity taking place in one of these facilities, they can't just go in and try to put a stop to it. No, they can only go in if they've got a specific warrant for a specific individual. And with as much press as all of this shelter-related gang activity is getting, you can bet that when things transition to a new president in the near future, the way the asylum shelters here are monitored will probably change. And if people are smart, they'll leave on their own before that happens, and some of them are. But the whole reason we're even having this conversation is because for the last year, New York was America's sanctuary city capital, and over 220,000 people have come through here because of our generous right to shelter rules that will house anyone who asks. But because our shelter system doesn't do any background checks, this has allowed criminals who are not well-meaning to sneak in to these places and start ruining the lives of their fellow immigrants.
But even though the city council is against the mayor's plans to make any changes to the way things work around here, recent polling suggests that a majority of the electorate might be behind such changes that would get criminals out of our city who are potentially dangerous.
And the reason that matters is because next year there's going to be another election in New York.
A majority of New York voters, 54 to 35%, say that they think the state should support President-elect Donald Trump's efforts to deport migrants living here illegally.
My only issue with New York, and New York is a beautiful city as far as there's so much to do in New York. Like it is really the greatest city in the world. It just happens to be filthy. And I say that because as a New Jerseyan or someone from New Jersey, like I see it all the time, and I'd rather live in New Jersey, travel to New York when I have to, and leave right afterwards. Like wouldn't want to live there unless I'm in like a high rise or something like that. Anyway, I think the issue is there's a globalist agenda for New York, right? New York wants to pour money into all these people that are not residents. It makes no sense to me because they could take that same money and pour it into the city, clean the city up. There's so much the city needs to do. I think Mayor Eric Adams implemented like a new like trash can rule because the streets of in New York, what's so bad about it, they put the garbage right in front of every building. So there's like rodents and pests and all types of stuff just like running. You could literally like be having breakfast at a nice restaurant and outside there would be like rodents eating trash. Like that's how bad it is in New York. As far as like all the gangs that they're talking about that people are worried about coming from, migrant countries and stuff like that, New York has a lot of gangs already. We're talking about, we don't want the gangsters. We don't want the gangsters. You guys already have a lot of gangsters in all the boroughs. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of gangs. There's a lot of gang activity. There's a lot of violence in New York, even though it has very strict gun rules and strict laws. So, and a lot of people don't realize this. This is something I discovered recently. New York is the #1 municipality in the country for hostage negotiations. That's right. There's more hostages taken in New York City than anywhere else in the country. Yeah. But again, a lot of that has to do with the volume. There's just so many people in New York. They're all on top of each other. It's condensed. It's a mess. It's a mess, you know, and I wouldn't want to live like that. In Jersey, we have like lots of land. We're spread out. We got grass. New York is a concrete jungle. You won't see grass anywhere except for the certain reservations and parks that they have. That's where you'll see the grass. Other than that, the sidewalks are straight concrete. Everything is just like, you know, on a grid. It's really uninspiring in my opinion. I think out of all the cities in the world, it might not be the most beautiful for sure. But I really hope New York cleans its act up. I mean, I love living in the East Coast. I love living 30 minutes from the city. Like I said, there's so much to do in the city. Whatever kind of food you want, any time of the day, 24 hours a day, you could get in New York. I'm talking about any country in the world. Korea, Cambodia, India, Jamaica, Australian, you know, like whatever kind of food you could think of, it's available 24 hours a day in New York. It's amazing for that. So, should they clean up their act? Absolutely. Do I support all the efforts to clean it up? Absolutely. Do I want to see people who are migrating from countries that are dangerous deported? No. You know, my parents are immigrants, right? But we came here the right way. We came here through the front door, not the back door. I tell this to people all the time. My dad, you know, I'm first generation Trinidadian. My dad and my mom came from Trinidad, and they applied for citizenship just like anybody else the right way. My dad came to this country, started going to NYU, started working on Wall Street, and, you know, people like that, the smartest people coming from other countries, America is like an open hand. Like, you know, come in, please bring your talents. You know, the Indians say this too. And people come from India, they have no problem getting citizenship in America because they're bringing IT, they're bringing accountants, they're bringing lawyers. They're doing a great job. So I want to see New York cleared up. You know, I do feel like it's sad to see people being separated from their family. It's a sad thing, but, you know, when's enough? You know, I heard they're like dropping off buses of people to New York from like from the border and stuff like that. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong, and it's a shit show for real.
That includes 87% of Republicans and 54% of independents.
Democrats disagree, but not as strong as some might anticipate.
So, two things should become very clear from this. First, New York's sanctuary city policies, those are now seen as bad news by a majority of people who live here. And second, a majority of people seem to be in favor of a plan that would remove criminals from our city and make it safer. Now, this news report goes on to discuss how, from a numbers perspective, the asylum crisis has actually improved. There are less asylum seekers in the city's care now than there have been in a long time. But that's not what people are concerned about. They're concerned about gang activity. They're concerned about rising violence. And it makes sense that that has lagged behind the numbers related to the asylum crisis. And that's because when the asylum crisis here began, you didn't immediately have gang activity. It took time for gang members to infiltrate that system and come here and start recruiting and setting up their operations, and then to get the tools and the resources they needed to go out and commit crime. And now we're seeing that all over town. We're seeing it in middle-class neighborhoods with criminal activity all over the sidewalks in some places, with people being forced to sell stolen goods right on the side of the street. But as this article discusses, shutting down shelters will not get rid of gang activity here because this is still a sanctuary city. And as long as those laws remain, New York will be a magnet for people who want to hide from the federal government. They just might not want to do it inside of a very visible, prominent facility like this.
Darimar Almanzar came from Venezuela with her 2 sons and partner 3 months ago. She says she was just notified that come January 15th, everyone here will be moved. We don't know what he will decide to do. We are all waiting. Many of us are afraid. The city's lease with the federal...
So here we've got interviews with 2 shelter residents. First, we've got a woman who's upset and kind of scared because she and her family might be relocated to another facility. And then we've got this man who says that he's afraid because of him, probably referring to the incoming president. But why would someone be afraid of the incoming president if they're here in a law-abiding capacity?
If someone is not here in a law-abiding capacity, they might have something to worry about. But if they're here and they're doing the right thing and they're not part of a gang, then they shouldn't. However, there's speculation that not everyone who's come here and applied for asylum has done so in a legitimate manner. And there could be people who have a feeling their claim is going to get denied. And those could be people who are potentially nervous about new plans.
But the woman, she's currently living in one of the tent shelters. Her life is actually about to get better if the city relocates her. She's living at the Floyd Bennett Field facility, which nobody wanted to live in when it was first opened, and which activists protested was inhumane. It's literally a system of tents out on an old airfield. Nobody wants to live there. It floods. New York City's Randall's Island tent shelters have a similar problem. Those are in the process of being closed as well right now.
And if people end up getting relocated to facilities like this hotel, which are cheaper for the city to operate, they won't have to live in a tent in a field anymore.
And if any criminals living in a place like this are also removed from it, the place will be better equipped to benefit those who it was designed for. But now New York City finds itself in a very strange place with regards to the asylum crisis, because removing criminals from a sanctuary city is near impossible. And now the city finds itself with a mayor who wants to make that possible, a city council that doesn't, and an incoming president who says that all of these laws are illegal. And right now, everyone's wondering what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know what's going to happen next. They're going to get rid of all this stuff, right? Everything, this was all the agenda, unfortunately, of the current administration. And listen, whether you are liberal, Republican, right, or the left, we should agree that we need to take care of America first. I don't see why that's like such a radical idea. Like, we are not the police of the world. We're not the charity of the world. We could help people, but we should help ourselves first, right? We got to put the oxygen mask on our face first before we try to put the oxygen mask on anyone else's face. I mean, this is standard protocol, right? If you were in any kind of dire need and situation where there's a crisis, you gotta look out for yourself first. We are sacrificing ourselves for migrants. It doesn't make sense. Okay, listen, this is a great country to live in. It is a great country, and it's okay that it has rules. Am I fortunate that I was born here and I didn't have to go through what other people went through? Absolutely. But I think people need to focus on the idea that that this country doesn't have to sacrifice itself, you know, for immigrants. I don't think it needs to do that. I just think that if you want to move to this country, just do the right thing. Why is that so? I don't even understand why that's so hard to do. You know, we have millions and millions of people that do what they need to do to get to college, right? So we could prove that if there's rules and there's standards in order to enter a country, enter a university, enter some kind of establishment, it could be done. Right? It's not like, you know, I meet so many people that, like, when they come to this country, and not ignore migrants, just people on visas here, they're looking for the easiest way to get into this country. They want to get married to someone illegally and try to lie that way. I don't understand why people just don't want to take the test, go through the natural way. Everyone's trying to look for the back way. And it explains to me why the world is set up the way it's set up. You know, you're going to have the have and have-nots, because a lot of the people that are have-nots, even if you had a bad start in your life, you don't gotta end bad. Your mindset could change where you are in life. It could really impact your mobility. Up here is gonna have a lot more to do with what goes on in your life than the condition you were born in. You know, one of the best quotes I like, and I'm gonna end it on this, is that it's not what happened to you in your life, it's who you become. And a lot of people choose to become the victim. That's what I see here. I'll look at these things and we're like, oh, we should feel bad for them. And we victimize people. We villainize, you know, well-to-do, you know, leadership for saying, hey, we got to, like, take care of our city. Like, these people we don't want this issue. You know, we really don't want this issue. And this is why everyone got to be an armed citizen now. Because you got to protect yourself now. Look, some of these countries, people leave a lot of these countries that don't want to go through the front door. They want to go through the back door. A lot of them are violent. A lot of them will kidnap you. A lot of them will do some evil ish to you. And it's sad. It really is sad. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I hope everything goes well for everybody. I know there's a dire need for people. But like I said, I'd come through the front door, not the back door, man. It's all simple. Anyway, like this video, subscribe to the channel blowing up. I'll post the link to the original video in the description. Shout out to Cash Jordan. Check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you over there.